Dear Jujutsu Kaisen fans, read Sakamoto Days. If you were a fan of JJK because of the fights, the quick kinetic action, the almost animation-like choreography, and the raw hype and aura from reading it weekly, then Sakamoto Days is the series for you. If you were a fan of JJK because it had cool characters with funny, likable personalities, then again, Sakamoto Days should be on your reading list. For those of you who don't know, Sakamoto Days is about a store owner named Taro Sakamoto who used to be the world's greatest hitman, but retired and chose the family life. However, Sakamoto isn't able to fully leave the assassin world behind, and the manga details the activities he gets up to as the assassin world continues to try and drag him back. For the first few chapters, the manga generally carries a slice of life tone, really just going through a sort of Saturday morning cartoon vibe with comical villains that come and go, and basic plots that last for the duration of a chapter or two. But this time is well spent, with Suzuki introducing several characters that end up being more than just gags, and the story as a whole gets pretty intense once you hit the first major arc. But this video won't go into story spoilers, so instead, let's talk about the biggest thing a JJK fan might care about, the fights. Take a look at some of the fan-favorite JJK fights. Yuji vs Choso, Hikari vs Kashimo, Gojo vs Sukuna. What do all of these fights have in common? Straight hands. These fights feature some of the best hand-to-hand sequences in all of JJK, and nearly all of Sakamoto Days' fights present action that is on the same level, if not better. Fights in Sakamoto Days are fast, the characters have power behind their moves, the environment is consistently used in creative and unconventional ways, and most of all, the fights are clear and easy to read. This is a problem that some JJK fights are affected by, particularly in the later parts of the series when Gege really leads into his rougher line work. With Sakamoto Days though, you still retain that fast, impactful movement that JJK has so much of, while maintaining a strong level of clarity that allows the reader's eyes to track characters panel to panel and page to page throughout the whole fight. More than just having superb clarity, Sakamoto Days fights also feature some of the most unique locations for a fight I've seen, complete with characters making full use of their environment. Each fight location has a complete sense of scale, with Suzuki's art truly making for some jaw-dropping scenes. Like I mentioned earlier, characters also use everything in the environment to their advantage, which just makes for entertaining fights, and you'll eventually be wondering what crazy things some character will do to end the fight. So, to conclude my glazing, I'll say this. Sakamoto Days fights feature fast movements, incredible sequences of hand-to-hand combat, amazing art, creative environments, and a level of clarity that just makes them entertaining to read. Now, all this time, I've been mentioning the characters a lot and how they're so entertaining during the fight, so let's take a second to actually talk about what makes the characters so good. As a general rule, nearly all characters have aura. Suzuki has a special way of making literally any character, no matter how much of a bum they are, seem cool, so there's very few characters, if any, that people will actively dislike unless they're literally written to be unlikable. But beyond the general rule, let's take a look at some specific characters. Taro Sakamoto, the main character of the series, has two modes: Chill Dad and Locked In. In his Chill Dad mode, it's not that Sakamoto isn't cool, but he's relaxed. He's still crazy strong, as made pretty evident within the first chapter of the manga, but as a whole, Sakamoto, when he's in his fat form, is this laid-back, easygoing, likable guy. But it's the fact that he has his skinny form, his moments where he really needs to lock in, that really add depth to his character. We know that Sakamoto has consciously decided to leave behind his ruthless killing instincts in favor of a gentler, family lifestyle, and we know that Sakamoto is generally a really nice, chill guy. So when Sakamoto is forced to take someone seriously, forced to essentially return back to his old ways as an assassin, the reader is automatically intrigued. It's like when the nicest person you know finally snaps and everyone gets quiet. The same effect is achieved when Suzuki shows Sakamoto in his skinny form, but instead of every reader getting quiet and being filled with fear, they get quiet and brim with excitement. It's exciting to see Sakamoto have to fully try to beat an opponent because you know that Suzuki is going to make it a spectacle. Because of this dichotomy and simple technique Suzuki uses to convey the tone shifts of the series, Sakamoto makes himself a solid, entertaining main character. Sakamoto's right-hand man, Shin, is also super well liked. While I'd argue that Shin isn't nearly as cool as Sakamoto, at least not right from the start, that really just adds to his charm. Unlike Sakamoto, Shin isn't the greatest assassin of all time. He isn't a bum, but he is nowhere near the top tiers of the verse. Because of this, we see Shin undergo the typical shonen MC character arc, where he has an ideal to strive towards, and will stop at nothing to achieve it. We get to see as Shin comes to terms with his admiration for Sakamoto, learning to incorporate it into his fighting style when it works, and casting it aside in favor of making his own style that incorporates his own strengths when it doesn't. Shin's constant appetite for improvement also leads to some of the most hype moments in the series, and his relatively goofy, laid-back nature really makes you want to root for him when he decides to lock in against an opponent that he might have zero chance of beating. Overall, the fact that Shin starts off the story so weak ultimately contrasts really well with Sakamoto's seemingly overwhelming strength, giving readers a good mix of an overpowered MC and a regular shonen MC. But while Sakamoto's strength might seem overwhelming at first, Suzuki does a great job of fleshing out the world of assassins to show that while Sakamoto might have retired and relaxed for 5 years, the rest of the assassin world didn't. This is exemplified the most by the two other main groups in the story, namely the Order and Slur's group. Unfortunately, I can't get too in-depth without giving away story spoilers, so I'll speak in general terms. The Order represents the top of the top in the professional assassin world, since they report directly to the JA, which is the organization that manages Japan's assassins, and take on the most dangerous and important assignments. Membership of the Order is limited to 10, and the roster has never been full, so you can imagine that the people that make it into the Order are absolute monsters. We find out pretty early on that not only did Sakamoto used to be an Order member, but that another member of the Order, Nagumo, was one of Sakamoto's friends back when they were in school. But without getting into the specifics of each Order member, I'll just say this. They're all cool. Each member has a unique gimmick to their fighting style, whether it be the weapon they use, their actual fighting style, or their mindset when it comes to fighting. And that's all complemented well by the unique personalities each character has. You have your stoic, silent types, your goofy, silly types, your brave, heroic types, and everything else in between. On top of this, we find out later on in the story that the Order lore runs deep, and the story that's shared between some of the members is honestly one of the best arcs in the story. Overall, the Order is just really cool. As a minor spoiler, Slur's gang currently functions as the main antagonistic force. Much like the Order, Slur's gang also features some top assassins of the world, but they're also all criminals since they don't directly report to the JA. Again, much like the Order, each member of the gang has their own unique personality, fighting style, views, and motivations, making for a diverse cast of actually interesting characters. On top of this, these guys share a much tighter bond than some of those in the Order due to their origins, so you really get the sense that they're a close-knit group with a lot of history behind them, which deepens your emotional connections to them and compels you to care for them more. And of course, they're all really cool. So now that you have a better sense of the style of Sakamoto Days fights, along with a bit of insight into the key characters of the story, here's the verdict. Read Sakamoto Days. Fights are fast, impactful, creative, and just a joy to look at with Suzuki's clean but explosive art style, and the characters are so much fun to see on page. Each arc either has a character you already like doing something cool to make you like them more, or Suzuki finds a way to introduce some new character and make them do something cool. Either way, readers of JJK are sure to find something that they'll like within Sakamoto Days, so go ahead and read it.